Mitsubishi A6M0 Japan, the terror of the Pacific skies. When Japan entered World War II in 1941, its secret weapon was already waiting in the wings, the Mitsubishi A6M0, a fighter so advanced for its time that it redefined aerial combat in the Pacific. Designed by engineer Jiro Horikoshi, the Zero was built with a single philosophy: speed, agility, and range above all else. Weighing barely over 5,000 pounds fully loaded, it was constructed with lightweight aluminum alloys and powered by a Nakajima Sakai 12 engine producing 940 horsepower. Its range, nearly 1,900 miles with drop tanks, was unmatched by any other fighter in 1940. When the Allies first encountered it, they were stunned. The Zero could outturn, outclimb, and outmaneuver nearly every opponent. The A6M0 made its combat debut over China in 1940, where it quickly demonstrated superiority over Chinese and Soviet-built aircraft. But it was during the attack on Pearl Harbor and the early months of the Pacific War that the Zero's legend truly took flight. Its pilots, highly trained veterans of the Imperial Japanese Navy, used its agility to devastating effect at Clark Field, Wake Island, and the Philippines, sweeping the skies clean of Allied resistance. For nearly 2 years, the Zero dominated. American pilots came to fear its long elliptical wings appearing suddenly in their rearview mirrors. Dogfighting a Zero was almost suicide. It could loop and roll with ease, and its 20mm cannon and twin 7.7mm machine guns tore through enemy aircraft with precision. But the Zero's greatest strength was also its fatal flaw. To achieve its lightness, it sacrificed armor and self-sealing fuel tanks. This meant that a few well-placed bullets could ignite its fuel and send it blazing from the sky. As the war dragged on, Japan's ability to produce skilled pilots diminished, while the Allies introduced new aircraft like the F-6F Hellcat and F-4U Corsair, both faster and far more durable. By 1944, the Zero was no longer invincible, but its legend endured. More than 10,900 Zeros were built during the war, serving across every major front of the Pacific. It symbolized both Japan's engineering brilliance and the tragic cost of chasing perfection in war. The Zero was the angel of Japan's early victories, and the ghost that haunted its skies when defeat came. T-34 medium tank, Soviet Union, the tank that turned the tide at Stalingrad. When German forces invaded the Soviet Union in June 1941 under Operation Barbarossa, they expected an easy victory. Their panzer divisions had crushed Europe, Poland, France, and the Balkans, with ruthless efficiency. But in the forests and fields of Russia, they met something they hadn't seen before, the T-34. Designed in 1939 by Mikhail Koshkin and produced at the Kharkiv locomotive plant, the T-34 was revolutionary. It combined speed, firepower, and armor in perfect balance, something no tank in the world had yet achieved. Its sloped armor design, up to 45 millimeters thick, could deflect German shells that would have destroyed other tanks. Its 76.2 millimeters main gun could pierce Panzer III and IV armor with ease. And despite its power, it could move quickly, thanks to wide tracks that gave it excellent mobility on mud and snow, a vital advantage on the harsh Eastern Front. When the Wehrmacht first encountered it, German tank crews were stunned. The T-34 could take multiple hits and keep fighting. It could traverse terrain that immobilized their own vehicles. Hitler himself reportedly exclaimed that the T-34 was the best tank in the world. As the war intensified, the T-34 became the backbone of Soviet resistance. At Stalingrad, it played a decisive role in turning the tide of the war. Soviet factories in the Ural Mountains worked day and night, producing thousands of these steel monsters even as bombs fell overhead. By simplifying production, the Soviets were able to build them faster than the Germans could destroy them. By 1943, an upgraded version, the T-34-85, entered service, featuring thicker armor and a more powerful 85mm gun capable of challenging even the fearsome German Tigers. Over 57,000 T-34s were built during World War II, more than any other tank of the era. It wasn't just a machine, it was a symbol of Soviet endurance. Its rugged simplicity allowed it to operate in conditions where others failed, from frozen rivers to burning cities. The T-34 turned the Red Army into a mechanized juggernaut and broke the myth of German invincibility. It didn't just fight the war, it helped win it. Messerschmitt Bf 109 Germany, the Luftwaffe's deadly workhorse. Before World War II began, the Messerschmitt Bf 109 had already rewritten the rulebook of aerial warfare. Designed by Willy Messerschmitt and first flown in 1935, it became the standard-bearer of German air power, sleek, fast, and deadly. When war broke out in 1939, the Bf 109 was the most advanced fighter in the world. With its all-metal monoplane design, retractable landing gear, and powerful Daimler-Benz DB601 engine, it was capable of speeds over 350 miles per hour, outpacing and outclimbing most rivals. It was the backbone of the Luftwaffe, serving from the invasion of Poland to the final defense of Berlin. During the Battle of France and the Battle of Britain, the Bf 109 clashed with British Spitfires in some of the most intense aerial duels in history. Though both aircraft were evenly matched, the 109's climb rate and heavy armament gave German pilots a deadly advantage in skilled hands. The Bf 109 wasn't just one aircraft, it was an evolving machine. Throughout the war it was continuously upgraded. The Bf 109E Emil served in early campaigns. The F Friedrich and G Gustav variants followed with more power and heavier guns. The final K Kurfürst version could reach nearly 440 miles per hour. It was also the mount of the world's top-scoring aces, including Erich Hartmann, who achieved 352 confirmed kills, a record that still stands. But as the war dragged on, Germany's strategic situation deteriorated. Fuel shortages, overwhelming Allied numbers, and the arrival of advanced American fighters like the P-51 Mustang gradually eroded the Luftwaffe's dominance. Still, the Bf 109 fought to the very end, even as jet fighters began to emerge. With over 33,000 built, it became the most produced fighter aircraft in history. The Bf 109 symbolized the technical brilliance and tactical aggression of the Luftwaffe, an icon of the skies that defined air combat for an entire generation. Jeep Willis MB, USA, the humble machine that moved armies. While tanks and bombers grabbed the headlines, another machine quietly became one of the most important vehicles of World War II, the Willis MB Jeep. When the U.S. Army called for a light, fast, and reliable reconnaissance vehicle in 1940, Willis Overland and Ford stepped up to the challenge. The result was a 2,400-pound, four-wheel drive vehicle powered by a simple 60-horsepower engine. It could cross rough terrain, climb steep hills, and operate in almost any condition imaginable. Nicknamed simply the Jeep, it became the backbone of Allied mobility. From the deserts of North Africa to the jungles of Burma and the beaches of Normandy, the Jeep was everywhere. It served as a command car, ambulance, supply truck, and even a machine gun platform. General Dwight D. Eisenhower famously called it one of the three decisive weapons of World War II, alongside the Dakota transport aircraft and the landing craft. More than 640,000 Jeeps were built during the war, and their impact went far beyond logistics. They symbolized American ingenuity, cheap to produce, easy to repair, and nearly impossible to stop. Soldiers loved them for their reliability. Civilians admired them for their simplicity. After the war, the Jeep became a global symbol of freedom and resilience, evolving into the civilian Willys CJ, the ancestor of the modern SUV. In a war filled with steel giants, the Jeep proved that sometimes the smallest machine can move the largest armies. Spitfire Mk9, UK, Britain's elegant angel of the Battle of Britain. The Supermarine Spitfire was not merely an aircraft, it was a living symbol of Britain's defiance and endurance during its darkest hour. Sleek, fast, and deadly beautiful, the Spitfire became a national icon and one of the most celebrated fighter planes in history. Designed by the brilliant engineer R.J. Mitchell in the 1930s, the Spitfire was the culmination of his lifelong dream to create the perfect flying machine. Its graceful elliptical wings were not just aesthetically pleasing, they reduced drag and increased lift, granting the aircraft extraordinary agility in the skies. At the heart of this engineering marvel lay the legendary Rolls-Royce Merlin engine, a powerhouse that gave the Spitfire its distinctive roar and unmatched performance. When war came to Europe in 1939, the Spitfire was still relatively new, but its time to prove itself arrived in the summer of 1940 during the Battle of Britain. As Nazi Germany prepared to invade, the Luftwaffe unleashed relentless air raids over southern England. The Royal Air Force, RAF, vastly outnumbered, stood as Britain's final shield. The Spitfire and its rugged companion, the Hawker Hurricane, became the twin guardians of British skies. While the Hurricane bore the brunt of the bomber attacks, the Spitfire took on the Luftwaffe's best, the agile Messerschmitt Bf-109s. In the hands of young, daring pilots, the Spitfire's quick climb rate, light controls, and tight turning radius gave it an edge in dogfights. The battles over Dover, Kent, and the English Channel became legend. Every flight was a gamble with death, yet the courage of the few, as they came to be called, turned the tide of history. Prime Minister Winston Churchill captured the nation's gratitude in his immortal words, "Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few." Those few were often barely in their 20s, flying multiple missions each day in conditions that pushed both man and machine to their limits. The Spitfire became their trusted companion, a delicate yet deadly dance partner that responded to every touch with elegance and precision. The Spitfire's success was not static. As German technology advanced, so too did Britain's response. By 1942, the Luftwaffe had introduced the formidable Focke-Wulf FW-190, which outperformed earlier Spitfires in both speed and climb rate. Britain's answer came swiftly in the form of the Spitfire Mk9. Equipped with the upgraded Rolls-Royce Merlin 61 engine featuring a two-stage supercharger, this variant restored parity in the air. The Mk9 could reach speeds exceeding 400 miles per hour, climb to altitudes over 40,000 feet, and engage the enemy with devastating effectiveness. It became one of the most versatile fighters of the war, capable of escorting bombers, intercepting enemy aircraft, and even conducting ground attack missions. What made the Spitfire truly remarkable was its adaptability. Engineers and pilots worked hand in hand to refine its design across numerous variants, each tailored for different roles and theaters of war. The Spitfire served not only in Europe but also in North Africa, where it battled in the scorching desert skies, in the Mediterranean, supporting Allied operations over Malta and Italy, and even in the Pacific, where it fought against Japanese aircraft. Its performance remained competitive throughout the war, despite the rapid pace of aviation innovation. By the end of World War II, over 20,000 Spitfires had been built in countless versions. Each was a testament to British craftsmanship, resilience, and ingenuity. Its reputation extended far beyond its combat record. To civilians enduring bombings, the sight of a Spitfire overhead was a symbol of safety, proof that Britain still controlled its skies. To Allied pilots, it represented freedom and courage. To enemies, it was a warning that Britain would not be conquered. Yet behind its sleek exterior lay a story of human perseverance. R.J. Mitchell, the aircraft's creator, never lived to see the full glory of his masterpiece. He died of cancer in 1937, just 2 years before the Battle of Britain. But his vision lived on in every flight. The Spitfire became a tribute not only to British engineering, but also to one man's dream of perfection. Even after the war, the Spitfire's legacy continued. It served in the air forces of several nations and inspired generations of aircraft designers. To this day, surviving Spitfires still take to the skies at airshows, their engines echoing like ghosts from another era. When one flies, it carries the spirit of all those who once trusted their lives to its wings. More than just a machine, the Spitfire embodied hope, a reminder that beauty and strength could coexist, and that even in moments of despair, innovation and courage could turn the tide. During the Battle of Britain, when invasion seemed inevitable, it was the Spitfire that helped ensure the skies remained free. Its name became synonymous with victory, its silhouette an emblem of resistance. In every sense, the Spitfire Mk9 was not just an aircraft, it was Britain's elegant angel, defending a nation's soul. U-boat Type 7, Germany, silent hunter of the Atlantic. Beneath the cold, restless waters of the North Atlantic, a deadly shadow war unfolded, one that was as crucial to the outcome of World War II as any battle fought on land or in the air. At the heart of this hidden war was Germany's most feared weapon, the Type 7 U-boat, the silent hunter of the Atlantic. This submarine was not just a machine of steel and pressure valves, it was a symbol of the Third Reich's naval ambition to cripple Britain through starvation and isolation. The Type 7 first emerged in 1936 as part of Germany's rapid rearmament under Adolf Hitler, defying the restrictions of the Treaty of Versailles. Developed by German engineer Dr. Karl Donitz and his naval staff, the design of the Type 7 was a product of brutal efficiency. It was smaller and more maneuverable than earlier ocean-going submarines, but it packed a lethal punch. The Type 7 typically carried 14 torpedoes, mounted 4 forward and 1 aft, and could travel more than 8,000 nautical miles on the surface without refueling. It could dive to depths of about 750 feet, 230 meters, deep enough to evade many Allied depth charges in the early years of the war. Powered by diesel engines on the surface and electric motors underwater, the Type 7 had a surface speed of around 17 knots and a submerged speed of about 7 knots. Though not fast by modern standards, it was designed for stealth, not speed. The U-boat's periscope, hydrophones, and precise torpedo targeting systems made it a formidable predator. Operating unseen beneath the waves, it could strike suddenly and disappear before escorts had a chance to respond. For the Allied sailors who watched the black silhouettes of their ships break apart under the ocean surface, the U-boat became a symbol of dread death from the deep. During the Battle of the Atlantic, 1939 to 1945, the Type 7 became the workhorse of the German Kriegsmarine. Its mission was simple but devastating: destroy the merchant convoys that carried food, fuel, and war materials from North America to Britain. Without these supplies, Britain would collapse. That was the German plan. The strategy, known as Handelskrieg or War on Trade, nearly succeeded. By employing wolfpack tactics, groups of U-boats would coordinate attacks on convoys via encrypted radio communications. When one U-boat spotted a convoy, it shadowed the ships while calling in reinforcements. Once gathered, the pack struck in the dark of night, firing torpedoes from multiple directions. Panic would erupt as ships burned and sank, their crews desperately trying to escape into freezing waters. The peak of U-boat dominance came in 1942, often called the happy time by German submariners. In that single year, U-boats sank over 1,000 Allied vessels, including tankers, troopships, and supply ships, nearly 7 million tons of shipping in total. The North Atlantic became a graveyard of steel and oil slicks. Britain's survival hung by a thread, and Prime Minister Winston Churchill later admitted that the U-boat threat was the only thing that truly frightened him during the war. But technological and tactical evolution would eventually turn the tide. The Allies developed ASTIC, early sonar, centimetric radar, and airborne depth charges, which made it increasingly difficult for submarines to hide. Long-range patrol aircraft such as the B-24 Liberator began covering the once vulnerable mid-Atlantic gap, while escort carriers provided constant air surveillance for convoys. On the intelligence front, British codebreakers at Bletchley Park achieved one of the most important breakthroughs of the war, cracking the German Enigma code, which allowed them to track U-boat positions in real time. The results were devastating for Germany. By 1943, U-boat losses skyrocketed. For every ship they sank, several submarines were destroyed. Crews faced almost certain death. The U-boat service became known as the most dangerous duty in the German military. Out of roughly 1,162 Type 7 submarines built during the war, more than 700 were lost, taking the lives of over 30,000 sailors, nearly three-quarters of all German submariners. The ocean had become their tomb. Despite this grim fate, the Type VII's influence on naval warfare was immense. The U-boat campaign forced the Allies to innovate faster than ever, leading to advancements that would define modern naval strategy. Anti-submarine warfare tactics, convoy organization, sonar technology, and long-range air patrols all evolved directly in response to the U-boat menace. The battle between convoy and submarine became one of the most intense technological races in history. By the final years of the war, newer models like the Type XXI Electroboot began to appear, faster, quieter, and capable of staying submerged for extended periods. But by then, it was too late. Allied dominance at sea was complete, and the once feared wolf packs were hunted relentlessly. Still, the legacy of the Type 7 endures. It remains one of the most recognizable submarines ever built, a design that influenced post-war submarine engineering around the world. Today, a few surviving U-boats, such as U-995 preserved in Lebau, Germany, stand as silent reminders of the brutal underwater war that nearly brought an empire to its knees. The Type 7 was more than just a weapon. It was a symbol of both human ingenuity and the terrifying consequences of total war. It prowled the Atlantic's depths as an invisible predator, embodying the danger, desperation, and darkness of a global conflict fought on and beneath the seas. P-51 Mustang, USA, the long-range guardian of bombers over Europe. By the time the Allied bombing campaign against Nazi Germany reached full intensity in 1943, the air war over Europe had turned into a deadly gamble. American B-17 Flying Fortresses and B-24 Liberators were striking deep into enemy territory. Factories, oil refineries, and transport hubs vital to the German war machine. But there was a fatal flaw. No Allied fighter had the range to accompany them all the way to the target and back. Once the bombers crossed into central Germany, they were left unprotected. The Luftwaffe's fighters, including the deadly Messerschmitt Bf-109 and Focke-Wulf Fw-190, would descend in swarms. Missions to places like Schweinfurt and Regensburg ended in catastrophe, with dozens of bombers shot down in a single day. America was losing aircraft and men faster than it could replace them. The Allies needed a miracle. That miracle came in the form of the North American P-51 Mustang, a machine that would redefine air combat and turn the tide of the war. The story of the Mustang began not in the skies over Europe but in 1940, when the British government approached North American aviation with a request. They needed more modern fighters to supplement their existing fleet of P-40 Warhawks. In just 117 days, a team led by Edgar Schmud, a German-born engineer, designed and built the first prototype of what would become the P-51. It was sleek, low-drag, and aerodynamically advanced, but its early versions, powered by the Allison engine, performed poorly at high altitude. Everything changed when the British fitted the airframe with the Rolls-Royce Merlin engine, the same power plant that drove the Spitfire. The combination was electrifying. The new version, the P-51B, could climb faster, fly higher, and reach speeds of 440 miles per hour. Most importantly, with additional drop tanks, it achieved an extraordinary range of more than 1,600 miles, giving it the ability to escort bombers all the way from England to Berlin and back. It was the answer the Allies had been praying for. By late 1943, Mustangs began arriving in Europe under the 8th Air Force. Almost overnight, the balance of air power began to shift. Where bombers had once flown alone into a storm of German interceptors, now formations of P-51s carved paths through the sky, meeting the Luftwaffe head-on. They flew in disciplined groups, using altitude and energy to their advantage. The Mustang's agility and firepower, 6.50 caliber Browning machine guns, made it a lethal dogfighter. It could dive faster than German planes, outturn them in sustained combat, and climb away from danger with ease. The effect on the German air defenses was immediate and devastating. In 1944, American bomber losses dropped sharply. The Luftwaffe, once a formidable guardian of the Reich, began to crumble under relentless pressure. Mustang pilots hunted enemy fighters across the continent, from France to Poland, destroying them on the ground and in the air. In missions over Berlin, Munich, and the Ruhr Valley, they became known as the Little Friend to bomber crews, a name spoken with both affection and awe. Among those flying the P-51 were some of the most skilled and courageous pilots of the war, including the Tuskegee Airmen, the famed all-black fighter group of the U.S. Army Air Forces. Flying red-tailed P-51s, they achieved one of the most impressive combat records in history, earning the respect of both allies and enemies. Their discipline and success shattered racial prejudices and proved that excellence in combat knew no color. The Mustang's role extended beyond escort missions. It became a true multi-role aircraft, conducting low-level strafing runs on railways, airfields, and convoys. It intercepted the German V-1 flying bombs that terrorized London, shooting them out of the sky before they reached their targets. In the Pacific Theater, modified long-range Mustangs flew escort for B-29 bombers striking Japan. No matter where it flew, the Mustang dominated the skies. By the end of the war, the P-51 had destroyed nearly 5,000 enemy aircraft, more than any other American fighter in Europe. It had turned the tide of the air war, crippled the Luftwaffe, and ensured that the bombers could deliver the blows that would shatter Nazi Germany's industrial heart. Pilots called it the Cadillac of the sky, fast, graceful, and deadly. Even German ace Adolf Galland, a general of the Luftwaffe, admitted the best Allied fighter of the war was the Mustang. Beyond its statistics and combat victories, the P-51 represented something far greater, the triumph of engineering innovation and international collaboration. It was an American aircraft, powered by a British engine, flown by men from around the world, united in a common cause. Its combination of beauty, power, and reliability made it a legend not only in wartime but in aviation history. The Mustang continued to serve long after World War II ended, flying in the Korean War and with air forces across the globe. Yet, its legacy remains most deeply tied to the skies over Europe in 1944, when silver squadrons of P-51s escorted the bombers home, leaving white contrails across the cold blue sky. The P-51 Mustang was more than a fighter. It was a guardian angel for thousands of airmen. It carried hope, courage, and freedom on its wings. In the darkest hours of the war, it proved that innovation and determination could conquer even the mightiest of enemies. And when victory finally came, it was clear. The Mustang had earned its place among the greatest military machines ever built, the sleek, unstoppable guardian of the skies. M4 Sherman, USA, the Allied warhorse that overwhelmed Nazi armor. When the thunder of engines and the roar of cannons echoed across Europe in World War II, one machine became the backbone of the Allied ground forces, the M4 Sherman tank. Though it was never the heaviest or most formidable tank on the battlefield, the Sherman earned its reputation not through sheer firepower, but through reliability, versatility, and overwhelming numbers. It was the workhorse that carried the Allies to victory, proving that persistence, strategy, and industrial might could triumph where brute force alone might fail. The story of the M4 Sherman began in 1941, as the United States prepared to enter a war that would engulf the globe. American military planners recognized the need for a medium tank, fast enough to maneuver across varied terrain, well-armed to take on enemy positions, and simple enough to be produced in massive quantities. The tank was named in honor of Union General William Tecumseh Sherman, a nod to its intended role: relentless, unstoppable, and capable of breaking through enemy lines with force and momentum. The Sherman's design was a careful balance of armor, firepower, and mobility. Equipped with a 75mm main gun, it could engage most German armored vehicles at medium ranges, while its 30 mph top speed allowed rapid movement across battlefields. Powered by a robust gasoline engine, the Sherman could travel long distances and operate in a variety of environments, from the beaches of Normandy to the forests of the Ardennes and the deserts of North Africa. Its armor, while thinner than the German Tiger or Panther, was sufficient to protect crews from small arms fire and lighter artillery. More importantly, its simplicity meant that maintenance was straightforward, a vital consideration in prolonged campaigns. One of the Sherman's greatest strengths lay not in individual performance, but in production. The United States, leveraging its industrial might, produced over 49,000 Shermans during the war. Tens of thousands were sent to Allied nations through the Lend-Lease program, equipping Britain, the Soviet Union, and other partners with a tank that was reliable, serviceable, and ready for combat. The mechanical simplicity of the Sherman allowed crews to repair or replace parts quickly in the field, keeping units operational even after sustained fighting. Where German tanks required specialized maintenance and spare parts, Sherman units could keep moving, maintaining the momentum essential to Allied strategies. On the battlefield, the Sherman faced formidable opponents. German Panthers and Tigers outgunned and out-armored it in direct confrontations. Yet, the Allies developed tactics that capitalized on the Sherman's strengths. Rather than relying on individual duels, Sherman units operated in coordinated columns, using numerical superiority, maneuverability, and combined arms tactics to overwhelm enemy forces. At Normandy, Sherman supported infantry advances, broke through entrenched positions, and helped secure the beachheads that were critical to the liberation of France. In the Ardennes, during the Battle of the Bulge, Sherman formations advanced under harsh winter conditions, demonstrating resilience and adaptability even in extreme circumstances. The Sherman was also a remarkably versatile platform. Engineers and commanders adapted it for a wide variety of roles beyond the standard battle tank. Some were fitted with flamethrowers, turning them into terrifying weapons against fortified positions. Others were modified for amphibious operations, mine clearing, or bridge laying. Specialized variants even served as recovery vehicles or artillery tractors. This adaptability made the Sherman not just a tank, but a flexible tool capable of supporting any mission the Allies could devise. In many ways, the M4 Sherman exemplified the principle that victory is not always about perfection, but about persistence and adaptability. While the German Tiger might dominate a one-on-one fight, a single Tiger could not match the sheer numbers, logistical support, and coordinated tactics of Sherman units. The war was won not by isolated moments of firepower, but by sustained pressure, teamwork, and industrial scale, qualities embodied in the Sherman tank. By the end of World War II, the Sherman had become more than just a machine. It was a symbol of Allied determination. It rolled across Europe in vast columns, a tangible representation of the might of free nations united against tyranny. Its crews endured hardships, engaged in intense combat, and relied on the tank's reliability to survive. Across deserts, forests, and cities, the Sherman proved itself indispensable, a consistent, resilient, and adaptable warhorse that carried the Allies from the shores of Normandy to the heart of Germany. Even today, surviving Shermans are preserved in museums and battlefields around the world. They remind us that in war, the combination of ingenuity, numbers, and perseverance can outweigh raw power. The M4 Sherman was never the deadliest tank on the battlefield, but it was the tank that made victory possible. Its legacy endures as a testament to industrial innovation, strategic thinking, and the courage of the men who rode into battle atop this Allied warhorse. In the grand tapestry of World War II, the Sherman stands as proof that endurance and adaptability, combined with relentless effort, can turn machines of steel into instruments of triumph. It was not just a tank, it was the backbone of an army, the symbol of Allied resilience, and a decisive force that helped bring the Nazi war machine to its knees. Tiger I Heavy Tank, Germany, the mechanical beast that struck fear across battlefields. In the spring of 1942, the Eastern Front witnessed the arrival of a machine that would redefine the concept of armored warfare, the Tiger I Heavy Tank. Unlike any Allied vehicle then on the battlefield, the Tiger I combined overwhelming firepower, nearly impenetrable armor, and a presence so imposing that it inspired both fear and awe. For soldiers facing it, the Tiger was more than just a tank. It was a moving fortress, a symbol of German engineering ambition, and a nightmare in steel and treads. The Tiger I was the product of Henschel and Son, a German engineering company tasked with creating a tank capable of dominating any battlefield. The design philosophy was simple: build a vehicle that could defeat every Allied tank at extreme range while surviving hits that would destroy lesser vehicles. The result was a mechanical colossus weighing nearly 57 tons, with frontal armor up to 120 millimeters thick, far exceeding most medium tanks of the time. Its main weapon, the legendary 88mm KWK-36L/56 gun, was already proven as an anti-aircraft and anti-tank platform. Mounted on a rotating turret, it could penetrate enemy armor from over 1,500 meters, allowing Tiger crews to engage and destroy targets before opponents even had a chance to fire back. The Tiger's debut in Leningrad and the Eastern Front stunned both German allies and Soviet enemies. Its combination of armor and firepower rendered conventional Soviet T-34s and KV-1s almost impotent. The psychological effect was as potent as the physical. Soldiers described Tigers as invincible, iron monsters, and death incarnate. Entire Soviet units would retreat at the mere sight of a Tiger, while artillery and tank units struggled to find weapons capable of stopping it. The machine's reputation grew with every encounter, reaching mythic status as tales of kill counts and battlefield dominance spread across Europe. But the Tiger was far from perfect. Its very power came at enormous costs. Production was slow and labor-intensive. Each tank took roughly 8 to 9 months to complete and required massive amounts of steel, fuel, and specialized parts. Mechanically complex, the Tiger was prone to breakdowns, particularly in harsh conditions. Its Maybach engine consumed fuel at alarming rates, making logistics a constant challenge. On muddy or icy terrain, the Tiger's weight became a liability, sometimes immobilizing the vehicle entirely. Despite its battlefield superiority, only around 1,350 Tigers were ever produced, a fraction of the medium tanks that could have been deployed with the same resources. Yet, in combat, the Tiger proved devastating. Its battlefield debut was followed by legendary actions in places like Kursk, the largest tank battle in history, where Tigers tore through Soviet armored formations with terrifying efficiency. In Tunisia and Normandy, Tiger units, including the famous 101st SS Heavy Panzer Battalion, gained reputations for near invincibility. One of the most iconic figures of the Tiger was Michael Wittmann, a tank ace whose skillful use of the Tiger Eye reportedly destroyed dozens of Allied tanks in single engagements. Stories of such feats fueled the aura of invulnerability surrounding the vehicle. The Tiger's fear factor was magnified by its presence as much as its firepower. A single Tiger could halt infantry advances, dominate defensive positions, and shape entire battlefields. Even when outnumbered, Tiger crews could inflict massive damage, buying time and disrupting enemy plans. Allied soldiers quickly learned that survival often depended on avoiding direct confrontations, using ambushes, artillery, or coordinated attacks to neutralize the armored giant. Despite its flaws, high production cost, mechanical fragility, and fuel consumption, the Tiger left a legacy unmatched by most war machines. It symbolized German engineering at its extreme, a tank designed to dominate any fight regardless of cost. Its overbuilt design reflected the German military philosophy, quality and power over quantity, even when it strained logistics and manpower. In many ways, the Tiger Eye was the perfect representation of Germany's technological ambition during World War II, impressive, deadly, and unforgettable. The Tiger's impact extended beyond its battlefield performance. It influenced Allied tank design, inspiring the development of heavier and more powerful vehicles capable of countering such threats. Even decades later, the Tiger remains a benchmark in armored warfare, a machine studied by military historians, engineers, and enthusiasts alike. Its image, massive, fearsome, and almost regal, still evokes the terror it once inspired. In the annals of World War II, the Tiger Eye was more than a tank. It was a mechanical beast, an icon of armored warfare, and a symbol of fear that could change the course of battles without ever firing a shot. Its legend endures because it combined technology, psychology, and raw power in a way no other tank of its time could match. The Tiger was not merely a weapon. It was a statement. In steel and fire, Germany had created a monster that would strike fear across battlefields for generations to come. B-29 Superfortress, USA, the sky fortress that ended the war with atomic fire. By 1944, the United States had recognized the immense challenges of waging war across the vast expanses of the Pacific Ocean. Japanese-held islands were spread across thousands of miles, and traditional bombers simply could not reach deep into the heart of enemy territory without refueling or leaving themselves dangerously exposed. Enter the Boeing B-29 Superfortress, the most advanced bomber of World War II and a symbol of American engineering prowess. The B-29 was not merely a plane. It was a technological leap forward, a machine that embodied speed, altitude, range, and firepower, all packed into a single airframe designed to dominate the skies over the Pacific. The B-29 was the culmination of years of research and development by Boeing, in collaboration with the United States Army Air Forces. Its design included features unprecedented for its time: a wingspan of 141 feet, for powerful Wright R-3350 duplex Cyclone engines, a pressurized cabin for high-altitude missions, and remote-controlled gun turrets capable of protecting the aircraft from enemy fighters. These innovations allowed the Superfortress to fly higher than 30,000 feet, evade anti-aircraft fire more effectively, and strike targets hundreds of miles from its base, carrying a bomb load that could devastate entire cities. With a top speed of 357 miles per hour and a range of 3,000 miles, it was a plane built for endurance and impact, designed specifically for the long-range operations the Pacific Theater demanded. The B-29 first saw combat in mid-1944, conducting missions over Japanese-held territories in China and the Mariana Islands. Its long reach allowed it to strike industrial targets that had been previously untouchable, crippling enemy supply lines and infrastructure. One of the most effective strategies employed by B-29 crews was high-altitude precision bombing, intended to destroy military factories and munitions plants. However, unpredictable weather, strong jet streams, and Japanese defenses often made accuracy challenging, leading commanders to adopt low-altitude firebombing raids. These missions, targeting cities like Tokyo, Nagoya, and Osaka, devastated urban areas, disrupted war production, and imposed a level of psychological pressure that weakened Japan's capacity to continue fighting. The B-29 would, however, achieve worldwide notoriety for missions that would forever alter history. In August 1945, two B-29s, Enola Gay and Bockscar, carried the first atomic bombs ever used in combat. Enola Gay dropped Little Boy on Hiroshima, and 3 days later, Bockscar delivered Fat Man over Nagasaki. These strikes resulted in unprecedented destruction and loss of life, compelling Japan to surrender and effectively ending World War II. These missions also marked the dawn of the nuclear age, forever intertwining the B-29 with both victory and the terrifying potential of atomic warfare. Beyond the atomic missions, the B-29 was a workhorse of relentless strategic bombing campaigns. Its combination of speed, altitude, and payload capacity allowed it to reach targets with precision while minimizing losses. Crews often faced perilous conditions, including long overwater flights, tropical storms, and enemy fighters. Yet, the B-29's engineering and versatility allowed it to adapt to multiple roles, from conventional bombing to reconnaissance, and even experimental missions testing early jet and rocket technologies. The production of the B-29 was itself a feat of wartime industry. Over 3,900 units were built in record time, with multiple factories across the United States contributing to an assembly line effort that involved tens of thousands of workers. Each plane represented not just mechanical ingenuity, but a coordinated national effort to dominate the air and achieve strategic objectives across the globe. The B-29's impact extended beyond World War II. It served prominently in the Korean War, laying the foundation for modern strategic bomber design and long-range aerial warfare. What set the B-29 apart was more than its technological innovations. It was its ability to project American power across vast distances, striking targets that were previously unreachable and shaping the outcome of the Pacific conflict. Its pressurized cabins allowed crews to operate at altitudes where oxygen was scarce. Its defensive systems protected it from enemy fighters, and its payload could level industrial centers with terrifying efficiency. The Superfortress was a plane that redefined what a bomber could be, combining speed, altitude, endurance, and destructive power in one elegant yet deadly platform. In the annals of military aviation, the B-29 Superfortress stands as a symbol of both triumph and caution. It brought an end to a devastating war, cemented American air superiority, and introduced humanity to the age of nuclear weapons. It was a machine of innovation, endurance, and firepower, a true sky fortress whose legacy continues to remind the world of the immense power and responsibility of strategic air power. The Superfortress was not just a bomber. It was the embodiment of a nation's industrial might and the harbinger of a new era in warfare. These 10 machines were more than inventions. They were reflections of their nations, their values, strengths, and flaws. Each left a mark not just on the war, but on the history of technology and humanity itself. From the skies above to the oceans below, from deserts to frozen steppes, they defined an age when metal became might, and might decided the fate of the world.